All right. Hi. So I'm here with Benjamin Katz, who is a doctoral candidate in clinical psychology at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And Ben's going to talk to us a little bit today about the peer review process. What is peer review? Why do we do it? And what does that process look like? So thank you.
Absolutely. So I guess we're going to talk about peer review. Let's start with what a peer-reviewed journal is not. What's the difference between a peer-reviewed academic article versus a Medium article? Okay, the goal of a peer-reviewed article is for somebody who is hopefully quite smart, but more importantly, has expertise and training in that area to put together either a theoretical body of work or an experiment or some kind of study done with a large group of people, and use that to present an argument about what the world looks like. And then it is sent out to other peers in their field, academics who are in a similar area, who are familiar with the kinds of methods that work, and also hopefully familiar with the literature and the other kinds of studies which have been done in the area. And they're going to say, first of all, does this look like it was done correctly? And second of all, is this actually advancing our conversation beyond things that we know already? Those are usually the two kinds of metrics that they go on.
So when you say, is it done correctly, what are some things that a peer reviewer might look for in checking whether a study's been done correctly?
So again, I'm going to go back to the difference between a peer-reviewed article versus a Medium article, because in terms of scientific literacy, it really comes back to that. One classic example will be correlation versus causation. Right? Anyone who's been in a statistics course has heard the phrase that there's a correlation between vocabulary and shoe size, but it's not that bigger shoe size means you know more words. It just means that you're older. Right? So just because the two of those things go very closely together, it doesn't mean that one is causing the other. So those kinds of comments, are much more dealing with the theory and the discussion surrounding the study itself. What you'll also find very commonly, and I think even more common, because it really is central, is, the study itself. Right? What kind of a manipulation have you performed? Did it really do what you think it did, or maybe did it do something else which is closely related, but not what you're talking about? What kind of statistical tests did you use? Is that actually appropriate for the data that you're trying to analyze? And those are really the kind of comments where they could really get you. And that's really where peer review is absolutely critical, right? Because I could do, let's say, all the steps correctly, but if I'm using the wrong statistical test, then I can give you a very confident statement, which I shouldn't actually be making if we look at the standards of our discipline.
Right. And that's an area where that expertise versus being a smart person comes in and makes a difference. Because, a smart person can look at the methods and look at the logic and say, this makes sense to me. But if they don't have the expertise to know, well, actually, this measure doesn't target anxiety, it actually targets depression. And so we can't target anxiety, or this statistical approach actually doesn't let you draw this inference about this difference between groups or lack thereof, for example. That's where having that peer review makes a big difference.
So again, what peer review is there to tell you is, first of all, is this something which was done well, done rigorously, from the design which removes any kind of alternate explanations, to the statistics where you're doing it correctly and you're not trying to do some kind of numerical hocus pocus to hide something, all the way to, do other people who are in the field and are well versed in this think that you're saying something which is worth telling the world more about? We're interviewing right now during the COVID-19 pandemic, and scientific literacy is absolutely critical.
That's great. Yeah, and that's an important point that you're making about this idea that, peer review is not synonymous with scientifically proven to be factually true, but it also does carry some weight, because it does mean that several people with expertise in this area and who are professionals in this specific research area have taken a look at it and have said, this, as you said, this passes muster. Yeah, that's fabulous. So can you tell us a little bit about what the peer review process looks like to go through as a scientist?
Sure. Uh, it's stressful. There is, yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so tell us a little more. So what about it is stressful?
Okay, so joking aside, let me actually talk to you about what
Joking
happens.
never
So,
aside.
um, so any subfield has plenty of academic journals within it. So let's say, we're clinical psychologists, so we have psychological science, clinical psychological science, behavior therapy, journal of abnormal psychology, a whole set of different journals, and they have different kinds of criteria and different things they place emphasis on. And again, part of literacy is even understanding what different kinds of journals research agendas are and the kinds of things that they value more and less. So let's say I have an article and I want to submit it to clinical psychological science, which is one of the really top journals, within our subfield. So I would actually go onto their website. I would see what standards they have for their article. Things as mundane as how many words, how many figures, what kind is this? Is this a theoretical review? Is this a empirically based research article? Based off of those, they're different, even just basic formatting standards. But then beyond that, more importantly, there's content standards. So, there will be plenty of journals. You'll see it a lot in clinical psych science, but not all the time, where they very strongly prefer experiments over work which is more correlational. And there's reasons for that, and there's all sorts of impacts. So it's not just choosing the right journal that fits, the prestige and the format of what I want to write, but really, again, is the research agenda consistent with what I want to do? So I go onto their website, and it's really as simple as uploading a PDF. I have to upload it in different pieces. The manuscript is separate from the figures, but that's, like uploading any homework assignment. Then it goes over to the handling editor in the journal. So you have the editor-in-chief at the top. If it's a big, very active journal like CPS's, they'll have a couple of different handling editors. And I'll be updated that they're my new point person. And they themselves are an academic in the field who's usually published a lot within that journal and other very prestigious journals. Usually you'll find them at kind of mid to height of their career. People who are really established and trusted gatekeepers. They will then have a look at it and decide, is this something which is relevant to their journal or not? We're at that level, they're just saying, is it worth going further with the review? And again, that could be, they don't think it's a high enough quality. They could also just think it's not relevant. Again, you're focused on psychotherapy and we do more experiments. And now your handling editor is going to take your manuscript and send it over to other people within the field who are able to judge, again, the quality of your manuscript and the appropriateness of it. They have a look at it, and based off of their expertise, they make their judgment. So either they're going to reject it, which for most journals of quality is the most common occurrence, or they're going to, what they'll usually do is provisionally reject it or tell you to revise it and resubmit it. And that's a situation where they'll give you what will usually be a couple of pages worth of bullet points to tell you, here are questions that they have about it, here are ways to improve your analysis. Again, these are all people, so usually the experience is I agree with 80% of what they're saying, and then the last 20%, I can't believe they said that. But again, we're all people. By the end, you realize that out of that 20%, most of it actually did make sense. I was just annoyed to do the extra work. But on the other side of that, you hopefully go through their comments. Most of the time, you do work with it to improve your paper. And then you resubmit it to the website in the exact same way.
Could you share a little bit, maybe an example of what a review or comment might look like?
Sure. It can, I'm thinking of a couple of different versions. One example will be you need to work on the theoretical background. Okay, maybe, let's say I have a recent paper which is going through peer review on depression, anxiety, and the COVID-19 pandemic. One of our reviewers said that, you should maybe include some of the literature which is coming out right now on the pandemic and suicidality. It seems like it's relevant, right? Or maybe you're overstating your case and you are extremely confident that you have given the reason for depression during the pandemic, and you need to tone it back a little bit. You need to be a little bit more circumspect and be a little bit more appreciative of the greater literature which is going on. You send it in, you include a letter saying, here's how we dealt with all of the bullet points and all of your notes. After 1, 2, 3 rounds of revise and resubmit, hopefully say your article should be published in the journal. It moves forward, it is past peer review, and importantly, it's not just you, someone smart and trained in the area, approves of it. It's already an institution, which is the journal, has said, we consulted with other peers who know how to read this kind of literature, and we're saying it's good to go. This is worth presenting to the world.